David to Elijah, Illustrated Bible, Favorite Verses, English. Absalom's War, 2 Samuel, starting at chapter 15, verse 6, background. Absalom is planning to take the kingdom of Israel away from his own father, King David. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Absalom said to the king, "Please let me go and pay my vow, which I have vowed to the Lord in Hebron. For your servant vowed a vow while I stayed at Geshur in Syria, saying, 'If the Lord shall indeed bring me again to Jerusalem, then I will serve the Lord.' The king said to him, 'Go in peace.' So he arose and went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, 'As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you shall say, Absalom is king in Hebron.' 200 men went with Absalom out of Jerusalem, who were invited and went in their simplicity, and they didn't know anything. The conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. A messenger came to David, saying, 'The hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom.' David said to all his servants who were with him at Jerusalem, 'Arise, let's flee, or else none of us will escape from Absalom. Hurry to depart, lest he overtake us quickly and bring down evil on us and strike the city with the edge of the sword.' The king left 10 women who were concubines to keep the house. All the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people passed over. The king also himself passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over towards the way of the wilderness. Behold, Zadok also came, and all the Levites with him, bearing the ark of the covenant of God, and they set down God's ark. The king said to Zadok, 'Carry God's ark back into the city. If I find favor in the Lord's eyes, he will bring me again and show me both it and his habitation. But if he says, I have no delight in you, behold, here I am. Let him do to me as seems good to him.' Zadok therefore and Abiathar carried God's ark to Jerusalem again, and they stayed there. David went up by the ascent of the Mount of Olives, and wept as he went up, and he had his head covered and went barefoot. All the people who were with him each covered his head, and they went up, weeping as they went up. When David had come to the top, where God was worshipped, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his tunic torn and earth on his head. David said to Hushai, 'If you return to the city and tell Absalom, I will be your servant, O king. As I have been your father's servant in time past, so I will now be your servant. Then will you defeat for me the counsel of Ahithophel. Don't you have Zadok and Abiathar the priests there with you? Therefore, whatever you hear out of the king's house, tell it to Zadok and Abiathar the priests.' When King David came to Bahurim, behold, a man of the family of Saul's house came out, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came out and cursed as he came. He cast stones at David and at all the servants of King David. Shimei said when he cursed, 'Begone, begone, you man of blood and wicked fellow! The Lord has returned on you all the blood of Saul's house, in whose place you have reigned. The Lord has delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom, your son. Behold, you are caught by your own mischief, because you are a man of blood.' Then Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to the king, 'Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Please, let me go over and take off his head.' The king said, 'What have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? Because he curses, and because the Lord has said to him, Curse David. Who then shall say, Why have you done so?" David said, "Behold, my son, who came out of my bowels, seeks my life. How much more this Benjamite now? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has invited him. It may be that the Lord will look on the wrong done to me, and that the Lord will repay me good for the cursing of me today." So David and his men went by the way, and Shimei went along on the hillside opposite him, and cursed as he went, threw stones at him, and threw dust. Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel with him. Then Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give your counsel what we shall do." Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go into your father's concubines that he has left to keep the house. Then all Israel will hear that you are abhorred by your father. Then the hands of all who are with you will be strong." Moreover, Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Let me now choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David tonight." Ahithophel imagines David's defeat. "I will come on him while he is weary and exhausted, and will make him afraid." Ahithophel imagines putting his foot on David's neck. "All the people who are with him will flee. I will strike the king only, and I will bring back all the people to you." Hushai said to Absalom, "The counsel that Ahithophel has given this time is not good. Hushai is really David's spy, but I counsel that all Israel be gathered together to you, from Dan even to Beersheba, as the sand that is by the sea for multitude, and that you go to battle in your own person." Ahithophel, Hushai, pretends to imagine David's defeat. "So we will come on him in some place where he will be found, and we will light on him as the dew falls on the ground. Then we will not leave so much as one of him and of all the men who are with him." Ahithophel leaves to kill himself. Absalom and all the men of Israel said, "The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel, for the Lord had ordained to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil on Absalom." Then Hushai said to Zadok and to Abiathar the priests, "Ahithophel counseled Absalom and the elders of Israel that way, and I have counseled this way." Hushai tells Zadok to hurry. "Now therefore send quickly and tell David, saying, 'Don't lodge tonight at the fords of the wilderness, but by all means pass over, lest the king be swallowed up, and all the people who are with him.' Jonathan and Ahimaaz are spies for David too." Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz were staying by En-Rogel, and a female servant used to go and report to them. And they went and told King David, for they couldn't risk being seen coming into the city. But a boy saw them and told Absalom. Then they both went away quickly and came to the house of a man in Bahurim, who had a well in his court, and they went down there. The woman took and spread the covering over the well's mouth, and spread out crushed grain on it, and nothing was known. The woman tricks Absalom's men to run the wrong way. Absalom's servants came to the woman to the house, and they said, "Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" The woman said to them, "They have gone over the brook of water." When they had sought and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. After they had departed, they came up out of the well and went and told King David. Jonathan and Ahimaaz said to David, "Arise and pass quickly over the water, for thus has Ahithophel counseled against you." Then David arose, and all the people who were with him, and they passed over the Jordan. By the morning light, there lacked not one of them who had not gone over the Jordan. Absalom. Then David came to Mahanaim. Absalom passed over the Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. David counted the people who were with him, and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. The king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, saying, "Deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom." All the people heard when the king commanded all the captains concerning Absalom. So the people went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was in the forest of Ephraim. The people of Israel were struck there before David's servants, and there was a great slaughter there that day of 20,000 men. For the battle was there, spread over the surface of all the country, and the forest devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. Absalom was riding on his mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak. And Absalom was hanging between the sky and earth, and the mule that was under him went on. A certain man saw it and told Joab and said, "Behold, I saw Absalom hanging in an oak." Joab said to the man who told him, "Behold, you saw it, and why didn't you strike him there to the ground? I would have given you 10 pieces of silver and a sash." The man said to Joab, "Though I should receive 1,000 pieces of silver in my hand, I still wouldn't stretch out my hand against the king's son." Then Joab said, "I'm not going to wait like this with you." He took 3 darts in his hand and thrust them through Absalom's heart while he was still alive in the middle of the oak. 10 young men who bore Joab's armor surrounded and struck Absalom and killed him. Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing after Israel, but Joab held the people back. They took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the forest, and raised over him a very great heap of stones. Then all Israel fled, each to his own tent. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself the pillar which is in the king's valley. It is called Absalom's monument to this day. Now David was sitting between the 2 gates, and the watchman went up to the roof of the gate to the wall, and lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, a man running alone. The watchman said, "I think the running of the first one is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok." Ahimaaz called and said to the king, "All is well." He bowed himself before the king with his face to the earth, and said, "Blessed is the Lord your God, who has delivered up the men who lifted up their hand against my lord the king." The king said to the Cushite, "Is it well with the young man Absalom?" The Cushite answered, "May the enemies of my lord the king, and all who rise up against you to do you harm, be as that young man is." The king was much moved, and went up to the room over the gate, and wept. As he went, he said, "My son Absalom, my son Absalom, I wish I had died instead of you. Absalom, my son, my son!" Joab was told, "Behold, the king weeps and mourns for Absalom." The victory that day was turned into mourning amongst all the people, for the people heard it said that day, "The king grieves for his son." The people sneaked into the city that day, as people who are ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. Joab came into the house to the king and said, "Today you have shamed the faces of all your servants, who today have saved your life. In that you love those who hate you, and hate those who love you, for you have declared today that princes and servants are nothing to you. For today I perceive that if Absalom had lived, and we had all died today, then it would have pleased you well. Now therefore arise, go out and speak to comfort your servants. For I swear by the Lord, if you don't go out, not a man will stay with you this night. That would be worse to you than all the evil that has happened to you from your youth until now." Then the king arose and sat in the gate, The people were all told, "Behold, the king is sitting in the gate." After Absalom's army ran back to the city, they said to each other, "Absalom, whom we anointed over us, is dead in battle. Now therefore, why don't you speak a word of bringing the king back?" Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to bring the king over the Jordan. 18 years later, now King David was old and advanced in years, and they covered him with clothes, but he couldn't keep warm. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith, also David's son, exalted himself, saying, "I will be king." Then Adonijah prepared him chariots and horsemen, and 50 men to run before him. Bathsheba went into the king in his room. The king was very old, and Abishag, the Shunammite, was serving the king. Bathsheba bowed and showed respect to the king. The king said, "What would you like?" She said to him, "My lord, you swore by the Lord your God to your servant, 'Assuredly Solomon your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne.' Now behold, Adonijah reigns, and you, my lord the king, don't know it. You, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you, that you should tell them who will sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise it will happen, when my lord the king sleeps with his fathers, that I and my son Solomon will be considered criminals." The king vowed and said, "As the Lord lives, who has redeemed my soul out of all adversity, most certainly as I swore to you by the Lord the God of Israel, saying, 'Assuredly Solomon your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne in my place,' I will most certainly do this today." Then Bathsheba bowed with her face to the earth and showed respect to the king, and said, "Let my lord King David live forever." Zadok the priest took the horn of oil from the tent and anointed Solomon. They blew the trumpet, and all the people said, "Long live King Solomon." Adonijah was afraid because of Solomon, and he arose and went and hung onto the horns of the altar. Solomon said, "If he shows himself a worthy man, not a hair of his shall fall to the earth. But if wickedness is found in him, he shall die." David slept with his fathers and was buried in David's city. Solomon sat on David his father's throne, and his kingdom was firmly established. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father, except that he sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask for what I should give you. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding heart, to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours?" God said to him, "Because you have asked this thing, and have not asked for yourself long life, nor have you asked for riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern justice, behold, I have done according to your word. Behold, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has been no one like you before you, and after you none will arise like you. I have also given you that which you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there will not be any amongst the kings like you for all your days." Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Then 2 women who were prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. The one woman said, "O my lord, I and this woman dwell in one house. I delivered a child with her in the house. The 3rd day after I delivered, this woman delivered also. We were together." This woman's child died in the night because she lay on it. She arose at midnight and took my son from beside me while your servant slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. When I rose in the morning to nurse my child, behold, he was dead. But when I had looked at him in the morning, behold, it was not my son whom I bore. The other woman said, No, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son. The first one said, No, but the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son. They argued like this before the king. The king said, Get me a sword. So they brought a sword before the king. The king said, Divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other. Then the woman whose the living child was spoke to the king, for her heart yearned over her son, and she said, O my lord, give her the living child, and in no way kill him. But the other said, He shall be neither mine nor yours. Divide him. Then the king answered, Give the first woman the living child, and definitely do not kill him. She is his mother. All Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. God gave Solomon abundant wisdom, understanding, and breadth of mind, like the sand that is on the seashore. People of all nations came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, sent by all kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. Behold, I intend to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spoke to David my father, saying, Your son, whom I will set on your throne in your place, shall build the house for my name. Solomon had 70,000 who bore burdens, and 80,000 who were stone cutters in the mountains, besides Solomon's chief officers, who were over the work. The king commanded, and they cut out large stones, costly stones, to lay the foundation of the house with worked stone. The house, which King Solomon built for the Lord, had a length of 60 cubits, about 90 feet, and its width 20, about 30 feet, and its height 30 cubits, about 45 feet. Thus, all the work that King Solomon did in the Lord's house was finished. They brought up the Lord's ark, the tent of meeting, and all the holy vessels that were in the tent. The Lord appeared to Solomon the second time,
as he had appeared to him at Gibeon.
I, God, have made this house holy, which you, Solomon, have built, to put my name there forever. And my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. But if you turn away from following me, but go and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh. When Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God. Therefore the Lord said to Solomon, Because this is done by you, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servant. However, I will not tear away all the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to your son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. Solomon slept with his fathers, and was buried in his father David's city, and Rehoboam his son reigned in his place. Jeroboam and all the assembly of Israel came and spoke to King Rehoboam, saying, Your father made our yoke difficult. Now therefore, make the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put on us lighter, and we will serve you." When all Israel saw that the king didn't listen to them, the people answered the king, saying, "What portion have we in David? We don't have an inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, Israel! Now see to your own house, David." King Rehoboam hurried to get himself up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel rebelled against David's house to this day. When all Israel heard that Jeroboam had returned, they sent and called him to the congregation and made him king over all Israel. There was no one who followed David's house except for the tribe of Judah only. Jeroboam said in his heart, "Now the kingdom will return to David's house. If this people goes up to offer sacrifices in the Lord's house at Jerusalem, then the heart of this people will turn again to their Lord, even to Rehoboam king of Judah, and they will kill me, and return to Rehoboam king of Judah." So King Jeroboam took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. And he said to them, "It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Look, and behold your gods Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt." King Jeroboam set the golden calf in Bethel, and the other he put in Dan. This thing became a sin, for the people went even as far as Dan to worship before the one there. Behold, a man of God came out of Judah by the Lord's word to Bethel, and Jeroboam was standing by the altar to burn incense. He cried against the altar by the Lord's word and said, "Altar, altar!" The Lord says, "Behold, a son will be born to David's house, Josiah by name. On you he will sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense on you, and they will burn men's bones on you." When the king heard the saying of the man of God, which he cried against the altar in Bethel, Jeroboam put out his hand from the altar, saying, "Seize him." His hand, which he put out against him, dried up, so that he could not draw it back again to himself. The king answered the man of God, "Now intercede for the favor of the Lord your God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored me again." The man of God interceded with the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him again, and became as it was before. After this thing, Jeroboam didn't turn from his evil way, but again made priests of the high places from amongst all the people. This thing became sin to the house of Jeroboam, even to cut it off and to destroy it from off the surface of the earth. Meanwhile, back in Judah, Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Judah did that which was evil in the Lord's sight, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins, which they committed, above all that their fathers had done. In Judah, they also built for themselves high places, sacred pillars, and Asherah poles on every high hill and under every green tree. There were also Sodomites in the land. They did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord drove out before the children of Israel. Now there was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. King Asa said, "Tear down these idols." In the 20th year of Jeroboam king of Israel, Asa began to reign over Judah. He reigned 41 years in Jerusalem. Asa did that which was right in the Lord's eyes, as David his father did. He put away the Sodomites out of the land, and removed all the idols that his fathers had made. King Asa said, "Get these men out of Judah," destroying the idols. There was war between Asa, king of Judah, and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. Nadab, the son of Jeroboam, began to reign over Israel in the 2nd year of Asa, king of Judah, and he reigned over Israel 2 years. King Nadab did that which was evil in the Lord's sight, and walked in the way of his father, and in his sin with which he made Israel to sin. Baasha killed King Nabat and reigned in his place. As soon as he was king, he struck all the house of Jeroboam. King Baasha didn't leave to Jeroboam any who breathed until he had destroyed him, according to the saying of the Lord, which he spoke by his servant Ahijah the Shilonite. King Baasha did that which was evil in the Lord's sight, and walked in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin with which he made Israel to sin. The Lord's word came against Baasha, saying, "Because I exalted you out of the dust and made you prince over my people Israel, and you have walked in the way of Jeroboam, and have made my people Israel to sin, to provoke me to anger with their sins. Behold, I will utterly sweep away Baasha and his house." Baasha slept with his fathers, and was buried in Tirzah, and Elah his son reigned in his place. Elah, the son of King Baasha, began to reign over Israel in Tirzah for 2 years. His servant Zimri, captain of half his chariots, conspired against him. Zimri kills King Elah. Now Elah, king of Israel, was in Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza. And Zimri went in and struck him and killed him in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, and reigned in his place. When he began to reign, as soon as he sat on his throne, he attacked all the house of Baasha. The people who were encamped heard that Zimri had conspired, and had also killed the king. Therefore all Israel made Omri, the captain of the army, king over Israel that day in the camp. Omri went up from Gibbethon, and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. When Zimri saw that the city was taken, he went into the fortified part of the king's house, and burnt the king's house over him with fire, and died. Zimri died for his sins, which he sinned in doing that which was evil in the Lord's sight, in walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin which he did to make Israel to sin. Omri, king of Israel, did that which was evil in the Lord's sight, and dealt wickedly above all who were before him, to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger with their vanities. In the 38th year of Asa king of Judah, Ahab, the son of Omri, began to reign over Israel. As if it had been a light thing for Ahab, king of Israel, to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he took as wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. He raised up an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he had built in Samaria. Ahab made the Asherah, and Ahab did more yet to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. Elijah the Tishbite, who was one of the settlers of Gilead, said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word." Then the Lord's word came to him, saying, "Go away from here, turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, that is before the Jordan. You shall drink from the brook. I have commanded the ravens to feed you there." The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. After a while, the brook dried up, because there was no rain in the land. The Lord's word came to him, saying, "Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and stay there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to sustain you." So he arose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and said, "Please, get me a little water in a jar, that I may drink." As she was going to get it, he called to her and said, "Please, bring me a morsel of bread in your hand." She said, "As the Lord your God lives, I don't have anything baked, but only a handful of meal in a jar and a little oil in a jar. Behold, I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go in and bake it for me and my son, that we may eat it and die." Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go and do as you have said, but make me a little cake from it first, and bring it out to me, and afterward make some for you and for your son. For the Lord, the God of Israel, says, the jar of meal will not run out, and the jar of oil will not fail, until the day that the Lord sends rain on the earth." She went and did according to the saying of Elijah, and he, and her household ate many days. After these things, the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became sick, and his sickness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. She said to Elijah, "What have I to do with you, you man of God? You have come to me to bring my sin to memory and to kill my son." He said to her, "Give me your son." He took him out of her bosom and carried him up into the room where he stayed and laid him on his own bed. Elijah cried to the Lord and said, "Lord my God, have you also brought evil on the widow with whom I am staying, by killing her son?" He stretched himself on the child 3 times and cried to the Lord and said, "Lord my God, please let this child's soul come into him again." The Lord listened to the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the room into the house and delivered him to his mother. And Elijah said, "Behold, your son lives." The woman said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the Lord's word in your mouth is truth." After many days, the Lord's word came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, "Go, show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the earth." Elijah went to show himself to Ahab. The famine was severe in Samaria. When Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" He answered, "I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house, in that you have forsaken the Lord's commandments, and you have followed the Baals. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel to Mount Carmel, and 450 of the prophets of Baal, and 400 of the prophets of the Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent to all the children of Israel, and gathered the prophets together to Mount Carmel. Next up, the battle of Elijah against the 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah on Mount Carmel.